What is up, guys? Welcome to the Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith. I am joined by the man, Ellie Hernandez. Ellie, how's it going, man? What, you got some news here?
Yeah, we just had the baby on January 17th at 8:02 a.m. She was 8 pounds 2 ounces. No name to share with y'all yet. We're still working on that. Tell you what, if you want, go ahead and comment on the video here and come up with your best Z names. Name must start with a Z. This isn't a contest. It's just for my respect and admiration. Whoever wins, you'll get a hug and then maybe a high five via the video next time.
We'll update you guys on the official name here, probably in a few days or a week or whatever. Anyways, hey, I'm taking full advantage of your awesome news here, Ellie. I think you guys out there should hit the like button and congratulate Ellie on his new daughter, man. So hit that like button. Maybe we'll get a couple hundred likes on this video. Maybe we'll see. Let's see what happens. Anyways,
let's get a couple subscriptions too, because I need y'all to watch some ads so that we can generate a little bit more revenue. I got three damn mouths to feed now, so help us out, guys.
All right, guys, let's get into this particular slate here. So we are only talking the 2-gamer here on Draftkings. Now, the main slate for this week is the 4-gamer going across 2 days. There's a milli maker for that. There's plenty of content creators, guys who know probably a lot more than we do talking about that 4-gamer. So we're going to let them take care of that. We're going to stick with two 2-gamers. So first, we're starting off with the Saturday 2-gamer, Jacksonville going into Kansas City, and the Giants going into Philadelphia. So this first game here, Jacksonville, that's in Kansas City. That's playing at Arrowhead is not easy. And look, they're minus 490 on the money line, 8.5 point spread, 52.5 point total. That's the highest total on the entire weekend here. So this game, especially on a 2-gamer, is a game we're going to want to really, really look at here. Obviously, Mahomes and Kelsey is going to be a very popular stack, but there's a lot of guys on the Jacksonville side that are very good value, and we're going to definitely end up talking about them. But then you got the Giants here. This is the 3rd time they've played, although when they played last in that, week 18, the Giants were sitting guys, and Jalen Hurts was coming back from injury, didn't play too well, but that was kind of a little warm-up game. We won't even call it, we won't even call that a matchup. So this is the 3rd matchup between them, technically 2nd. Phillies minus 360. They're the number 1 seed coming off of a bye. 7.5 point favorites with a 48.5 point total. Hey, man, what are your thoughts on these games overall? I think these are 2 fun games. I wish the KC Jacksonville game was the one at night, because that would have just been a little bit more funner to watch. But what are your thoughts here, man? What's got you excited?
So I think the biggest thing that I want to point out here is we all know that the obvious Chiefs and Philly are going to be favorited here, but I think there's a unique aspect to Jacksonville and the Giants. Neither team was expected to be here, and honestly, until Jacksonville won that game the other night, like nobody expected them to advance beyond that night, right? So these teams don't have anything to lose. So I do think these spreads might be a little high. We both know what kind of offenses KC and Philly have, and we know the defense that Philly has. But you have 2 teams that literally have nothing to lose, that are just playing for pride and respect at this point, right? So nobody was expecting Jacksonville or the Giants to be in this position. So I think that there's a little bit of the edge that you can have by playing some of these guys. I mean, look at that ownership total that we're getting for the Giants. Even when we were building, it was hard for us to jam in, too many outside of the obvious Saquon or whatever, right? Yeah. But I think there's some real leverage to have with the Giants, man.
I agree, dude. I think that you can get interesting with your stacks. Like you could take Danny Dimes and throw him with Saquon, and then that's it. You could naked stack some of these dudes, especially Danny Dimes going against Philly, man. I think he can get some rush yards. We saw him get plenty of rushing opportunities in that last game. So I guess my point here is do we, are we, if we stack Kansas City, which I want to do a lot of stacking to Kansas City, I think the way to get a little bit different here is, obviously go Mahomes, Kelsey, but you don't have to go Juju. You could go Kadarius
Right.
Toney, and then you could run it back with Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk. You could run it back with ETN. So maybe with these more expensive stacks, you punt at some of these other additional pieces to that stack. With Philly, you probably want to go at least AJ Brown or Devontae Smith. Obviously, I think that Philly stack is probably going to be the more expensive, harder stack to do. Just because pretty much everybody, like, I don't want to play Grant Calculator, but for Kansas City, I could
Right.
play Blake Bell, or I could play, one of the, Justin Watson. Like, I could play these dudes because they have a pretty damn good shot of scoring a touchdown. It's freaking Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball. So my point here is we're going to have to get creative with our stacks. It's a 2-game slate. So we don't have to go, you don't have to play any of these third or fourth string, like, running backs or anything random like that. But we got to get creative with our roster construction. So we'll get to that in a second. But what are your thoughts? Let's just talk briefly about where you think these games can go. And also, I want to point out here, before I actually ask you that question, the interesting thing about this Chiefs game is the Chiefs defense is not good. Obviously, I don't think Jacksonville has a chance to necessarily win this game. I'm not going to count them out, but I think this is where their story ends, because I just don't think they can outscore Kansas City. That's what this game's going to be about. It's not going to be about stopping teams. It's just going to be about coming out and scoring points. Kansas City's pass defense are 27th in rating, and dead last in pass touchdowns given up. 26th in rating allowed to wide receivers, 20th in rating allowed to tight ends, and then they're 23rd in yards per kickoff. So you got a guy like Jamal Agnew who can, maybe take one of the house in this game. So my thoughts on this is KC is going to win, probably like 35-24 or something like that. So what are your thoughts on this first game here, like game script, and how do you think it's going to go?
Yeah, man, I definitely think that we're going to see some that first game. I would say is probably something like 35 to 31. I do think Jacksonville is able to hang in. I think they cover, but I don't know that Kansas City is necessarily going to really be worried in all this game. I think one of the reasons why their defense struggles, but one of the reasons why their defense struggles is because their offense can score at any point, at any time, very quickly, right? And they're generally winning by 10 points. So you play a softer defense, right? You're going to allow certain things to happen. So that's great news for us because we're looking for fantasy points. So I think I do think that there's going to be a lot of fantasy points to be had there. And again, it's such a loaded total, man. I just want as many pieces as I can from that game. And to your point, I think a lot of people are going to be scared off the third, fourth, fifth wide receiver on Kansas City. And if you're telling me on a 2-game slate we can get a guy for 8% ownership that's damn near min salary, for sure, throw him in.
Exactly. So thoughts on this Giants Philly game? I think that Philly is going to be, Jalen Hurts. He's a little bit cheaper than Patrick Mahomes, and it seems like his ownership is going to be a bit higher. I think that Philly wins this game as well. I think that Philly and KC advance, but I do think if there is going to be one upset, I think it could be the Giants. So thoughts? I think the Giants could actually cover this, though. I don't think they're going to win, but I think they cover. Do you agree?
I think it's possible. I'm not. I think it depends on which team shows up. So the first thing is we can't read into Week 18. The Giants didn't necessarily play their starters, and Philly they weren't running any real plays. Right? They were running kind of their basic packages. Both teams knew kind of where they were for the seeding, and that now they're going to meet in the playoffs. So we can kind of throw out that adage we've been saying: you beat a team 3 times in a season, it's difficult. I'm not really going to count that game. So I would look at more 1-0 coming in. I think the Giants do have the ability to hang in this game, but this defense is a little bit more consistent than the Vikings were. So I expect Philly to win this game. Their defensive line is way better, and I think they're going to be able to put a lot of pressure on Daniel Jones.
I'm going to say 27-20 Philly. I do think that the Giants can put the ball in the air, and I think that some of these Giants wide receivers are priced well, and I think you can play them. But to me, it feels like Daniel Jones and his ability to rush is going to be important in this game. and I feel like he can get a rushing touchdown in this one. All right, let's get to our injuries here.
Yeah, just pain. It was pain everywhere.
So let's start with the first game. Trevor Lawrence is questionable. That doesn't mean anything. I think it's still his toe or whatever. Jamal Agnew questionable. That's kind of a big deal if he's available. I'm kind of interested in him, sprinkling him in a couple times. He did have that one. Was it against Tennessee? I believe it was against Tennessee. They ran a reverse to him where it was a bad pitch and he dropped it or something. It would have been a touchdown. Anyways, my point is with Jamal Agnew and his success in the return game, maybe he can get you a return touchdown. But I like him in gadget plays for this game to be sprinkled in a little bit. On the other side, looks like Mecole Hardman's going to be out again. It says questionable. I've seen some that are saying doubtful, so we have to probably just consider him out, which is a big boost for Tony. That's a big boost for potentially a guy like Sky Moore. Maybe you get Sky Moore in 15-20% of the snaps as a random dart throw, and then Justin Watson also gets a little bit of a boost there. Thoughts on Hardman here? If he plays, are you interested? But it doesn't look like he's playing.
Yeah, if he plays, I'm interested in him. He's getting involved in the run game, but I'll be honest, man. I think that's one of the reasons why they brought in Tony. Tony is he's Deebo Samuel light. Like if he gets an opportunity to really be in a consistent part of an offense, I think that he's going to kind of displace this role that they had for Mecole Hardman. If Hardman can move back into wide receiver, I think he's a great play. But again, if he's out, it's just going to open up so much value everywhere else. If he's in, I think it's just going to steal ownership away from a guy like Tony, who's already pretty low owned, that I want a lot of already. Yes. Beyond that, really, I think you talked about this a little bit earlier, but we need to keep an eye on Seth. I don't want to play him, but if he does somehow get activated and is a part of the 4-man running back rotation, I think that's important because that just dilutes the shares, and I don't think I want any exposure over there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. If CEH is back, look, it could mean nothing. I don't think that he's probably a part of the plans for this team in the future. They have Pacheco. I don't know what McKinnon's salary or his contract is like, so I don't even know if he's potentially coming back next year. My point in saying that is, if CEH comes back, is there a reason for them to even play him? I don't think so, but we know how Andy Reid and this Chiefs team is. I mean, shit, we could see. We saw Rojo score a touchdown the other day. Anything can happen, and if CH is activated, it kind of hurts all of them, So maybe I'm not as interested, but Pacheco I am interested in. It doesn't matter to me whether or not CEH is available or not. Anyways, anything. Jody Fortson, he may return. I don't know. I'm not super interested in him, but it's just another one of these dudes that you can add to these Mahomes stacks. All right, so if you look at Isaiah Hodgins has been crushing. He's got 25 targets in his last 3 games. He's questionable. I don't know what kind of questionable that is. I don't know if that's like a Trevor Lawrence questionable or an actual questionable. So we need to monitor that. If he's out, it hurts the team overall. And you can obviously give some of those other dudes like Richie James and Slayton boosts. But what else jumps out to you here, man? Anything else we need to really look at here, fantasy-wise?
Not really. I mean, I do want to point out that seeing ED under position at first, I thought it was under injury. I was very confused at what was going on with some of these guys. But no, man, that's it. I think it'll be interesting. Obviously, keep an eye on this secondary for the Giants. If Landon Collins. And that's not Jordan Love, but if their safeties are all out, then that's going to make a difference. Other than that, nothing crazy.
All right, so let's get into narratives here. Obviously, Andy Reid coming off of a bye is 27-4. We know what's going on with the Chiefs coming off a bye. They're probably going to win this game. I just think that Jacksonville, yes, they've had impressive wins, but they probably shouldn't have won both of those games that got them into this position. Against Tennessee, it was a late, lucky sort of fumble recovery for a touchdown that got him in. I thought that game was over before that happened. I thought they were out of the playoffs, and they very easily could have lost that game to a third, fourth-string quarterback. Obviously, last week against the Chargers, I think that's a combination of, hey, whatever they said to Trevor Lawrence in the locker room, whatever they said to those guys, they came out and they were ready to play, take it one drive at a time sort of situation. But I think that had a lot to do with the coaching staff and the other side of the ball with the Chargers. I just don't see Jacksonville being able to keep this up. I think they probably shouldn't even be here to begin with. I'm a huge fan. If they win, hey, that's great. That's awesome. My point here is I don't like Jacksonville in this game at all, and I think the other game is kind of up in the air. Let's do it. Let me find all the right buttons here. All right.
And while you're doing that, click that like and subscribe button.
Absolutely.
Hey,
there we go.
Good transition.
Let's do it. Break it down. All right. So we're starting with quarterback here. Patrick Mahomes.
I'm here.
He is 8K. Jalen Hurts 7,600, and then there's every time we say his name,
I'm here.
Trevor Lawrence is 6,000. There's a big drop off there, and then Daniel Jones is 5,800. So everybody and their brother is gonna play Mahomes and Hurts. I think they are going to account for probably 75% of that quarterback ownership. That opens up a lot of room in tournaments for guys like Daniel Jones and guys like Trevor Lawrence. You could put Trevor Lawrence along with the already couple receivers you're going to play most likely on this slate. Guys like Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, even ETN. You could just play Trevor Lawrence in that area and then be able to pay up for A.J. Browns and some running backs and Kelsey's and things like that. So what are your thoughts on all these quarterbacks? Cash, probably Jalen Hurts, maybe Mahomes. But what are we doing with Lawrence and Daniel Jones? I'm interested in them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody and their brother is going to be playing Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts on Saturday. Don't get me wrong. I think they're fine plays. I think you can run even naked Hurts if you want. It's going to be a little bit more difficult on a 2-game slate. So you maybe naked as in not stacking with a wide receiver at tight end, maybe him and Miles Sanders. But I think you're going to have to be a little bit more unique when building with those two specifically. You're going to have to be a little bit more weird. But look, man, Trevor Lawrence is probably my favorite play at quarterback. 6K, he's $200 more than Daniel Jones. Like, just pay up for him. And the defensive matchup is pretty elite. I don't expect him to throw 4 interceptions. Even if he throws 1 or 2, I still think that's kind of fine. Like, that still just sets up a scenario where he's going to be playing comeback ball or hero ball. And that's kind of what we're looking for here, right? It's very easy. The Chiefs go up in that game by 10 points right away, and they're just running their 4-back rotation. And Trevor Lawrence is required to keep them in the game. At 6K, all the ownership going to the other two. Like, you can literally do whatever you want with him at your quarterback. So, and then Daniel Jones, he's obviously in play at 5,800. I think you can stack him nicely. And he's also another unique one where you can think about just running naked. At 5,800, if he scores a rushing touchdown, like, that's it, right? He may be the only quarterback with a rushing touchdown. And he did that last week, right? Or was that, it was Kirk Cousins, my bad. I had money on Daniel Jones to finish it, and he got his call back. But look, we know, I mean, look at those point outputs, 30, 36. Like, that's crazy. I know it's not 100% reliable to expect him to do that in the playoffs, but Kansas City defense isn't necessarily elite. So I definitely think that there's some room for Trevor Lawrence and Daniel Jones to crush.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get to running backs here. I think, look, we all know what's going to happen with these quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence, Daniel Jones, you can throw some flyers there in tournaments. Jalen Hurts, probably your cash / single entry guy because he's a little bit cheaper. And then Patrick Mahomes, to me, I'm gonna have a shitload of Patrick Mahomes stacks and stack them with some of these cheaper, secondary options along with Kelsey. And then I could still run back a lot of Jaguars guys as well. Let's go to running backs. Saquon 7,900, Travis Etienne 6,400, and then McKinnon 6K, Miles Sanders 5,700. So it feels like to me, you probably want to get at least one of these studs out of the running backs, because once you get below Miles Sanders, it's a little iffy. It's Kenneth Gainwell at 4,100. Yeah, fine. That's a fine play, but Kenneth Gainwell probably is not going to score you more than 8-9 fantasy points, in his best day. So I think we got to stick with some of these top end guys, like at least have one of Barkley or ETN. What are your thoughts on that? And then what are your thoughts on some of these KC running backs?
So I think it's pretty straightforward when it comes to running backs. You got to play the 4 starters. Really the 3 starters. The Kansas City situation gets a little bit more murky. I don't know if I can play 6K for Jerick McKinnon. I'd rather just pay $300 less and play Miles Sanders. But Isaiah Pacheco at 5,500, I am slightly interested in him. Just keep in mind he's a running back. He's not going to get as involved in the passing game. So those PPR loss points may be a little bit painful. But beyond that, like it's just really difficult getting into any of these other running backs, right? Instead of Kenneth Gainwell, you're telling me I can go play a Kadarius Toney. Like I'm picking
Yeah.
that every day of the week and
Yeah.
twice on Sundays. Well, twice on Saturdays, I guess. But I that's where I'm at. You got to play the studs, decide whether or not you're paying up for Saquon, and then you're looking at ETN, Sanders, and then paying up at wide receiver if you're not paying for Saquon.
I do think that if you look at Pacheco, his numbers here, they're pretty nice. I mean, look at that. Like for his price and the fact that I think that there's a chance that maybe KC needs to run this clock down a bit. You're just looking at 12, 12, 10. I mean, he's been over 10 fantasy points or basically 9 fantasy points in every game since week 11. And he's going to, he's probably not going to get you more than 10, 15 carries. He's probably touchdown dependent, but I like playing Pacheco in non-Patrick Mahomes lineups. If Pacheco can steal a touchdown or two from a Mahomes passing or rushing attack, that could be a decent plan that you could try to do if you're hand building some lineups. Besides that, like we had mentioned CEH earlier, I'm not interested in him at all, but him coming back does affect things. And, when it comes to ETN, though, what are your thoughts on ETN in this matchup? He hasn't, last week he actually put up decent numbers, 20 carries, 100 yards. So thoughts on ETN? Are you interested in him?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen what ETN can do all year. This is a spotty Kansas City run defense. And I think the one thing that we lacked last week was just getting him involved in the passing game. That's where he has elite upside when it comes to just his quickness and his ability to just miss open field tackles. So I like him. I think that Doug Peterson's going to adjust the game plan to make sure that they're getting him involved a little bit more. Because I mean, if you're having 4 picks, man, they threw 4 picks in the first half. Simply having a running back leak out to prevent one of those dumbass throws would have been a huge difference maker. So I really expect to see ETN to be more involved, more than his 20 carries and 1 target.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing to mention here about this Jags pass defense, they're pretty damn good against pass catching running backs. They shut down Eckler last week, obviously. They have the second best rating in sort of shutting down these guys like Jerick McKinnon. So to me, I love Jerick McKinnon, but there's gonna have to be a game where he doesn't score a touchdown. Like it's got to happen, right? I mean, even last week or week 18, he had a touchdown. He only got you 8 fantasy points. So you're gonna have to have one of these 20-point outings for him to make the optimal most likely. I don't know that this is the game that I'm gonna count on him getting one of these 20-point outputs. I think Pacheco is the guy that I'm going to look at, and I'm going to be a little bit above the field with Pacheco. All right, let's go to wide receivers here. A.J. Brown, 7,600. Devontae Smith, 7,200. Christian Kirk, 6K. And then you got Juju at 5,100. So A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, I'm interested in getting, Hurts, Brown, Smith stacks or Hurts, Brown, Goddard stacks. It's been kind of hard to get to those, though, a little bit when we've been messing around and building. Do you think there's a chance that A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are a little bit under-owned compared to what they should be?
I don't know, man. Like right now, RG has them projected for pretty high ownership, but the problem is you start to get into difficulties when you're building. Now, if you're running maybe naked stacks or just Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown, then I think it's viable. But I think we talked about this on different 2-gamers, but I think one of the ways to get unique when you're stacking kind of some of these chalkier high end studs is find a way to get Hurts, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and then maybe even throw in Goddard or Miles Sanders. It might be a little bit more expensive, but overstacking might prevent you from duping too much with some of these other people. So, but look, man, AJ Brown, we all know what he can do against Giants secondary. I mean, this isn't necessarily the greatest defense ever, right? Again, the Giants have overachieved, and we know that A.J. Brown has legit 2-3 touchdown upside. So I love him. It's going to make a decision. Like, you're going to have to decide whether or not you're playing Travis Kelce or Saquon Barkley, right? You're going to have to decide whether or not you're going to play those guys to get to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But I am going to try to get to them a pretty healthy amount.
And the one thing that's interesting to me is Juju Smith-Schuster's ownership. Seems like I'm seeing differences on different sites, but it seems like he's going to be like 40+% owned, and he's going to be that other piece that people stack along with Kelce and Mahomes. To me, it just feels like, at that price tag, I'd rather play Hodgins or Zay Jones, or I'd rather play these other guys that are cheaper because there are just so many options on this Kansas City team. Now, if you're going to do Mahomes, Kelce, Juju Smith-Schuster, you're going to have to fade some studs, or you're going to have to punt at defense, or you're going to have to do something crazy. You're going to have to play Daniel Bellinger or something like that. So to me, I'd rather just be under the field on Juju in stacks, maybe in non-Kansas City Chiefs stacks. Maybe I'll throw a couple extra Juju in there. But for me, stacks with KC is going to be more leaning towards Kadarius Toney at 4,100. You got Justin Watson at 3,100, dude. 3,100 for Justin Watson. And then Sky Moore is a pure punt at 3K. I like how they've used him. He's not involved a lot, but when he is involved, they're trying to get him plays in the red zone, similar to what they do with a guy like Toney. So I know we've sort of talked this to death with the KC stacks, but what's your interest in Juju Smith-Schuster? What are we going to do with him?
I mean, look, for me, it's too high owned. 5,100, you're telling me I could spend 1,000 less, go down to Kadarius Toney, and then potentially come up off of like Isaiah Hodgins, and now be able to afford Christian Kirk. Like, I feel like that's a lot better of a roster construction. Even then, maybe that 1,000 you're saving is the difference between playing Daniel Bellinger at tight end and or somebody else. It gives you a little bit more flexibility at the defensive spot, so that you're not forced to play the Jags defense against the Chiefs or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Juju coming in chalky as hell is probably one of the easier places where I can go under, just because there are a lot of spots on this at wide receiver that you have the flexibility. In fact, I still might even prefer Sky Moore, right? Just a pure punt. Justin Watson had 9 points. He should have had a touchdown on that one play.
Yeah, exactly.
So he had one catch that game, right? 3,100. That's fine for me, man. Like, I think you punt here. There's very limited punt options on this slate, and the fact that these guys are all under $4,100 and less than 15% ownership is kind of insane to me.
Yeah, agreed. Christian Kirk at 6K, Zay Jones 4,700, even Marvin Jones at 3,600. It seems like Christian Kirk and Zay Jones are both coming in as some of the best value and the best points per dollar on the entire slate. So I do expect them to be relatively popular, but as of now, they have lower ownership than Juju Smith-Schuster as of now. That probably will change, but I think a guy like Zay Jones and a guy like Christian Kirk, or even Evan Ingram, which we'll talk about here in a minute, I'm going to try to get at least one of those guys in almost every one of my lineups. One of them, like, this team is going to come out, they're going to have to pass the ball. And KC is not a very good pass defense. They're not a very good defense in general. One of these guys has to go off from Jacksonville, right?
Yeah. Look, man, this is an 8.5 point spread. So if we're just not overthinking this, and we're thinking Trevor Lawrence has to keep this team in the game, they're going to be throwing. This could easily be a 350, 3-touchdown game for Trevor Lawrence. And that means Zay Jones and Christian Kirk, we saw it last week. They each ended up with some insane amount of receptions. Well, Zay Jones, not maybe as much. He ended up with a touchdown late last
Very
week.
similar. Yeah, it was
Zay Jones. But anyways, like, they still get their points. They still get their points, they get their targets, they get their receptions, and they're not being priced like they are getting them. And then Marvin Jones Jr., he even had a touchdown. I don't know, man. Like, I really think that all these guys are in play. Again, like, if you're telling me I have to decide between Jerick McKinnon and Kadarius Toney, like, that the amount of savings you're getting playing with these guys is just so much better. And you're not sacrificing another position that doesn't have much depth.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could even play guys like Quez Watkins as well. He's got some speed. Last thing we're going to talk about is Isaiah Hodgins at 4,900, Richie James 3,900, And then obviously Darius Slayton at 4,200. Richie James right now is coming in at a great as a great point per dollar play. He's cheap. These are the kind of guys that you could sprinkle in along with these higher owned stacks and end up getting under 20% ownership on some of these dudes with some decent upside. Thoughts on the Giants guys? Probably a guy like Isaiah Hodgins, if he's healthy and if he's active, he's the kind of guy that's been on a roll lately. Are you interested in him the most?
Yeah, absolutely. I like the Giants. I understand that the Eagles defense is good. Their secondary is incredible. But again, I just don't think the Giants have anything to lose. It would be an amazing thing for them to upset a divisional opponent in an NFC game or an NFC playoff game. So I think these guys are all in play. I love Isaiah Hodgins. To your point, what did he have? You said like 28 targets over the past
it was like
3 days.
25 targets for both of those Minnesota games and the Indy game. So hey, yeah, shitty ass teams, shitty defenses they were going against, but it means something if Daniel Jones is targeting him that much.
Look at his last game. Pull it back up. Look at his last game against Philly. I mean, it's the same secondary in week 14. I know week 18 isn't in here, so we can actually look at week 14 as kind of legit. I mean, 15.8 points at $4,800. That might be optimal. Now, I would expect Isaiah Hodgins has a little bit, could very well just be a legit wide receiver one. I mean, he's got 5-6 touchdowns over the past 7 weeks. So play him in. I think all these guys are in play, Darius Slayton included. We saw how much work he was getting. He was getting heavy involved in the offense, and then Richie James. None of these guys are priced like the upside that they have. They're priced because of the matchup that they have. So that's fine for me. I'll take flyers on all these guys.
The crazy thing with Isaiah Hodgins is he was claimed off of waivers earlier this year. Like the dude was let go. I forgot what team it was. I think it was Buffalo.
Bills.
Yeah, it was Buffalo.
Yep.
It's just crazy. Another thing to talk about is Richie. If Richie James is getting snaps in the slot, it's probably a better matchup for him as opposed to like guys like James Bradbury and Darius Slay probably going up against Hodgins and Slayton. So something to mention. All right, let's get to tight ends here. Travis Kelce, 7,700. Dallas Goedert, 4,500. Evan Ingram, 4,300. Those are the three guys that are going to be pretty damn popular. Travis Kelce is going to be 50 plus, maybe even 60% owned. And on a slate like this, a two-gamer, it's most likely majority of the flex plays are going to be tight ends as well. So Kelce and Ingram, Kelce Goddard, Kelce and Bellinger, that sort of thing. Could you get different enough if you're doing one of these popular stacks that you just play a high dollar wide receiver from the second game, or a high dollar running back from the second game? Does that make you different enough potentially?
We're in an awkward spot again here where you got or some of the better plays are priced down at tight end, so you're probably going to end up on a 2 tight end slate, right? It's easier to build Dallas Goedert and Evan Ingram in the same lineup, or even Kelce and Ingram. But as we just saw, the wide receiver position, there's just some excellent punts. Like I mean, even then, like instead of playing Evan Ingram at your in your flex spot as your second tight end, just throw in Kadarius Toney and see what you can do to pay up somewhere else. There's other decent wide receivers that you could use at 4,300. So I think you're right. I think you try and get as much Kelce as possible. I do like Goddard. I don't know if Ingram is going to have quite the success that he had last week. Look, man, like Evan Ingram, I don't want to get too carried away on this, but I'll believe it when I see it consistently. The dude's been playing for 25 years at this point, and this is his breakout season. Like that's concerning to me. He's doing great. He's doing great right now. But the one thing that Steve Spagnuolo has done for the Chiefs is made adjustments so that he can at least keep his team in the game. So I would expect they're trying to keep Ingram and Etienne bottled up, Ingram being the specific one there. So again, at 4,300, I think an excellent pivot is just instead of playing him at the flex, go down to Tony or even Justin Watson and pay up somewhere else. So
Jacksonville.
But I am slightly interested in a guy like Daniel Bellinger at 3K. Again, I think there's better punts, but I do think that he's 100% viable. This isn't the Minnesota defense, of course, but 9 points for 3K might be enough to put your lineup in the optimal.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at Jacksonville's defense, they're 30th in rating versus tight ends. Yeah, Kelsey's gonna get the ball. He's gonna get targeted. I know every once in a while Kelsey will have a below average game. We've seen it in the past few weeks. If Kelsey only gets you 11 fantasy points or 9 or 8, I don't know that he's making the optimal, depending on what the scoring is like. But in this situation, we saw Gerald Everett absolutely destroy the Jags in that game. They're not good against the tight ends. Just another reason for you to want to have to play Travis Kelce. Anything else to talk about here? Any of these random ass dudes? Obviously, a guy like Noah Gray, maybe even you could throw a flyer on at $2,500. Not super interested in him. He's very touchdown dependent. I'm probably not interested in anybody below Bellinger. Although a guy like Luke Cage here, earlier in the year he was looking pretty good, and he had a game week 18. That was that game where they were playing backups where he got 10 targets. So I don't think I'm super interested in going down to the $2,500 range on this slate. Are you at all?
No. Again, I just think that there's better plays that I'd play at 3K.
Defense, Eagles defense 3,300, Chiefs defense 3,100, Giants 25, Jaguars 22. So another conundrum here. Thankfully, it doesn't seem like there's one defense that just absolutely like 50-60% owned like there was on that last slate that we had. Eagles defense is going to be the highest owned. They're also the most expensive, and it's a lot harder. DK did a pretty good job with their pricing. It can get tight if you're trying to get this Eagles defense in there, especially if you're stacking from that first game with KC. So thoughts on, are you interested in Chiefs at 3,100, Giants? I don't know that I'm super interested in Jaguars defense, but all it takes is one random, sack and a scoop and score that could absolutely change everything. The Jaguars can still get their ass kicked and still have a pretty decent output on defense. Thoughts on these defenses?
Yeah, look, I just don't overthink it. If you have a lineup that you love and you have to play the Jaguars defense, I'm not sure that I necessarily hate it. Yeah, but look, I think you prioritize the Eagles where you can, and even the Chiefs where you can. But I will probably end up with a decent amount of the Giants just because. I'm not going to overthink it. I would rather play Travis Kelce, and not have to go down to someone else. It's just so that I can go from the Jags defense to the Chiefs or whatever. So that's the thing to keep in mind. Just remember what you're losing by paying up. If the fantasy point projection doesn't match what you're looking for, then just leave the other guy in.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to our lineup build here. All right, guys. So this is sort of the cash build that we did together before we came on. This feels pretty good based on kind of the ownership that we're seeing and the value that we're seeing. This feels pretty good. For those of you listening on the podcast, we got Jalen Hurts at captain. Too many showdown shows. Jalen Hurts, Saquon, Miles Sanders, Kadarius Toney, Zay Jones, Juju Smith-Schuster, Travis Kelce, Evan Ingram, and we threw Giants defense in there in order to get that Juju in there. Look, we're punting with Toney. I think you probably have to punt with one of these Kansas City guys here, one of these pass catchers. For cash builds, Juju's, like I said earlier, he's going to be probably pretty high owned. And I don't think that we have to play Mahomes at captain if we're doing cash or single entry. Jalen Hurts, that $400 that you save actually makes all the difference here. So what are your thoughts here, Ellie? Anything that you would want to change, and anything controversial here that maybe you don't agree with?
Yeah, the only thing that might look a little nasty here that I'll point out is just you got the mini game stack with Philly and New York at the top, right? Jalen, Saquon, and Sanders. And then the Giants defense, and then you're running it back with all Jacksonville and KC. Now it might seem a little contrarian not playing a quarterback from the Jacksonville KC game, but look, this build is specifically for Jalen Hurts with a rushing touchdown. We could see Hurts and Sanders both have 2 rushing touchdowns along with Saquon Barkley. So I think this is fine for cash. I will run this in a single entry because you guys know running it blind.
All right. And by the way, I apologize for Ellie's signal here. I've gone through as you're watching it and tried to cut down any of the the blank spaces in sound. But Ellie's working from his room. His parents are in town, so his office is done up now. So that's why we're getting a little bit of signal issue, but it's all good. We'll be back to normal here soon. Let's clear this up. Ellie, while I'm looking at this, talk to the guys about our Discord and what we got going on there.
Yeah, right underneath Tyson's name now, you see the scan me into the Discord. Go ahead and join there, and that's where we do all of our giveaways when we hit our subscriber marks. And you want to do a DraftKings entry into one of our gift card giveaways. That's where you'll be able to collect on that and enter. So join there. We'll keep you up to date on any news, any thoughts that we have as we get closer to lock for all of the games. And if you want to shoot the shit, talk shit, or just cuss out players during the game, we do that too. And then we also have a non-cursing chat for any of those who we don't, but we can if that's what you need.
All right, let's build with Patty.
I'm here.
Patrick Mahomes. All right, what are we doing? Let's just put Travis Kelce in here right off the bat. I mean, I don't think
Let's put in ETN.
I don't think you have to play Travis Kelce. There's always a chance that he gets you 9 or 10 fantasy points. I just think this is the week that he has another one of these 2-3 touchdown games, and you're going to have him. So what were you saying, dude? You want to put in ETN?
Yeah.
All right.
ETN. You want Saquon?
Let's start with Saquon and see what we can do. Let's put Tony in right off the bat. And now let's get Zay Jones.
Zay Jones, and then let's throw in Sky Moore. I like Sky Moore.
I love it, dude. I love it. There's a chance that this dude sees like 5 snaps. But hey, he's getting the ball thrown to him by Patrick Mahomes. I'm down. All right, so should we find our defense first? Probably find our defense first here. Let's start with Eagles and see what happens when we do that. 4,900 in the flex. So you got Isaiah Hodgins. You got
Yep.
You got a lot of options here, man. Not quite Juju. Now you could go down from Eagles and get Juju if you wanted to. You could probably actually. Let's try this. You could go. Can you go to Chiefs? Can you get? Who can you get? You can get Juju. Can't quite get Pacheco. So you could go down that route. I think I like Eagles and shit. I mean, Hodgins. That's not a bad play, right?
No, I don't hate that at all.
Yeah, my bad. I had Sky Moore in there. That's my bad. But yeah, Sky Moore here. So Mahomes, ETN, Barkley, Tony, Sky Moore, Zay Jones, Kelce, Hodgins, Eagles. That's a decent tournament lineup, I feel like. Let's build one more together here. You want to go Trevor Lawrence, T-Law?
Let's do it.
Who do you want to put with him? We got to put Kirk. I feel like we got to fit Kirk into this stack. Kirk and Zay Jones, probably?
Both of them. Let's.
Okay. Do we want ETN in this one or not?
Let's go Saquon and Isaiah Pacheco.
Love it, dude. I love that. Great. All right, do you want to run it back with Kelce here, most likely?
Yes.
All right, Kelce, we're in a pretty decent spot here. We got about 4K per. Where else do we need to go here for wide receiver? What game are we? We're missing some Giants. We're missing Philly. We don't have any Philly. Can we afford to get like Devontae Smith or AJ Brown?
Let's throw one of those guys in, and then in our flex, let's throw in Kadarius Toney and see what kind of money we have left over.
All right, I don't think we're gonna get there.
Oh no, it's not gonna work.
Yeah. Well, let's go down to Smith. Let's see if that does anything for us. No. Probably not. Let's go. Let's do what we said. Let's do the double tight end thing here with Goddard. That's possible here. That 3,800 a pop. Who do we want at defense here?
Let's go Philly.
All right. So we've got one wide receiver spot left. 4,400. You got Slayton. You got Tony.
I think you can rotate either of those guys. I think both are valid plays.
Richie James, even. It's not bad.
What happens if we take out Pacheco and go up to ETN? Does that give us? And are we still in that same area? Like, I think we got to go down to like Justin Watson or something. But
yeah, it's going to be no, not quite Marvin Jones, Quez Watkins, Jamal Agnew, Justin Watson, sort of a thing.
Okay.
So It depends. I mean, ETN has a much higher ceiling, so it could be worth it. All right. Anything else you want to do here? Any other builds? Do you want to do let's do a Danny Dimes. Let's do a Danny Dimes and Saquon build, or as we call him, Vanilla Vic. Daniel Jones, man, him going against this defense. As a runner, the Eagles have allowed 6.5 yards per carry allowed to quarterbacks, which is 31st in the league. So hey, it's a pretty decent option for him in this game to run the ball. If he can get a rushing touchdown, that's huge. So Daniel Jones, Barkley, where do you want to go here? Do you want to stack that first game a little bit more, or do you want to get an AJ Brown lineup in here?
Let's go AJ Brown. And then let's put Miles Sanders at running back too.
Okay. Sanders,
and then,
Kelsey, right?
Yeah, let's go Kelsey. I think we kind of have to. Let's go Quez Watkins as one of our wide receivers.
Okay, Quez. All right. So that leaves us
Tony and then defense, I think.
Tony, you want to do Eagles defense here? Going against the
well, not
the
against Daniel Jones. No. Let's go with Kansas City.
All right, Chiefs defense. Yeah, we don't have anybody right now from Jacksonville, but that's going to change because look who fits in there, Zay Jones.
I like that lineup a lot, actually.
That's not bad. That's interesting. You got Miles Sanders, AJ Brown, Quez Watkins without the quarterback. Instead, you got Danny Dimes and Saquon together, and then you got a bunch of other dudes. You got Tony, Kelsey, Zay Jones, and then Chiefs defense from that first game. That's a pretty decent lineup there. I kind of like that. So thoughts here, Ellie, as we've seen these builds are pretty straightforward. I like these 2-game slates because you can really dig deep and play guys like Tony and Sky Moore and Justin Watson and a bunch of these random dudes. So what are your thoughts on these stacks? What was your favorite stack that we built, and what are you looking to do when you're building for this?
Well, first thing is hopefully my last words don't come out as a PowerPoint presentation and a slideshow to you all. But I think you just got to be creative here, right? Don't overstack an offense, and then obviously play the defense against them. And don't overthink the defensive position. We've been talking about it the past couple of weeks. Work on getting the best lineup you possibly can, and then look at filling in those spots. And that's probably going to be the strategy that I take this way. But right now, my favorite stack is just going to be. But I guess Trevor Lawrence, man. I like Trevor Lawrence, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. I just think you can build a lot around that.
Yeah, my favorite stack, I'm sticking with Patty Mahomes. And I think that you could get different. You could put Kelsey with him. You can get different in other ways. So that's where I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go a lot of that. Anything else to talk about here? Who's your low-owned guy that you think will score?
Well, right now it's Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I do think that Jamal Agnew can get a touchdown in this game, and even a guy like Sky Moore could end up with a random touchdown in this game. Besides that, guys, we will be releasing the Sunday 2-game slate. That'll be released Friday, 7 p.m. And let us know if you want us to do a showdown slate for that last Sunday night game there. And maybe we'll bust out 3 shows this week. Anyways, we appreciate you guys. Thanks for the patience with some technical difficulties, but we will see you for Sunday 2-game slate.